Welcome to Crappy to Happy podcast, a special series on our Sacred Stories podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible stories of grit, grace, and love in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. I am your host, Rev Ariel Patricia, and together we will answer the question, do bad things happen to good people, or could the difficulties we face be gifts in disguise? Today we are speaking with my co-author, Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, whose afterword in Crappy to Happy is titled Laugh Till It Heals. And we're excited to share that with you. So Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos is a multi-award-winning author, co-author with me of Crappy to Happy, a radio host on DreamVisions7 Radio Network, and a dream expert. So welcome, Kat, to Crappy to Happy.
Thank you for having me on your show, Ariel. I'm excited to be here.
So this is book two. Book two, my friend.
It is. It is.
So our first book, that working together in this anthology series, our first book, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change, came out last year in 2019. And it was so well received, and it was really so impactful and meaningful for so many people. We said, well, guess we should do book two. Let's keep going. And Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy was born.
Yes. I mean, it was a work of love, and we realized that sometimes when crappy things happen to us, we can find a way to find the happiness in it, or fill ourselves with joy, find that joy in whatever the challenge is. And that can pull us up by our boots, straps.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful book and beautiful project for people, and we have 30 authors again from around the world, the same as Chaos to Clarity, that showed up to share their stories, and they're courageous stories. And we talk about, even in the book at first read, they may not seem so happy, they may not seem so joyful, but when you start reading between the lines and you start seeing the experience and the deeper perspectives and wisdom and outcome, you see the joy.
Right. And it's, the book is a little bit about the power of the outcome, or the power of the comeback. All of these people, when their stories started out, Ariel, I was reading them going, oh my gosh, it's just awful. And by the end of the story, I found my inner selves all cheering. I was on their side, and I was just amazed at their ability to come through the storm.
And thank you for talking about the art of the comeback, because our foreword is written by James Redfield, the author of the best-selling book, The Celestine Prophecy. And James, he was so taken with the stories. He was just thought they were so phenomenal. And he wrote this really beautiful foreword about the art of the comeback, and about the power of our heart and community, and everything that Crappy to Happy has, all kind of rolled up in one.
That's so true. And what's really interesting, Ariel, is the art of the comeback was also in book one. So far this series, and we have these two books in the series, and both of them, as soon as the art of the comeback was resonating in my mind, I was like, you know what? That's actually the first book as well. So what's happening is we are getting all these incredible stories in our books about not just the horrible, awful things that happened to some of the authors, and some of them are truly, truly horrific. The loss of loved ones, the loss of children, dire illnesses, but how they came out of that. And that is all about the art of the comeback, which is what, the foreword of the book is about, with James Redfield. He put his finger right on it.
Yeah, he did. It was just such an honor. It is such an honor to have James write the foreword, and for him to really get it. when he read it and he got it. And I'm like, he's so tuned in with with what the series is really about. And the reason, it's just so, it just feels so good, because for us, it's about sharing inspiration, hope. We know when others tune into our stories, or we can share our stories, that's where we find, the common ground. That's where people can see themselves in the story. Our stories are their stories. And they know that if we can do it, or others can do it, that in there is a bit of a roadmap for them as well. And that just means so much to me as well.
You said that so well. So many of us we're still on that road to finding the solution, to figuring out our comeback. And when we read these stories about these other people, and it's not just women in these books, there's men too. When we read the stories about these people who came through the storm, came out the other side, and then shared that with the world, they put their heart on a platter, they dared to share their most personal and private moments. When they did that, they're helping people worldwide who may not be there yet, but will read that story and say, gosh, if they did it, I can do it too. And it could be the one big change they were waiting for in their life, actually knowing somebody else came through it.
Yeah. And in addition to finding the inspiration within each individual story, there's some real amazing wisdom, that is also shared. And you share that in your afterword titled Laugh Till It Heals. Can you share your story of your friend Petronelle and what you learned from her?
Sure. I met Petronelle when I had just been diagnosed the first time with breast cancer. And I'm a 3-time breast cancer survivor. And Petronelle was with me through all 3 times. And the thing that made Petronelle different from anyone else I had ever met in my whole life was how she would laugh in the face of danger. And she would laugh with herself, all of her inner selves. And the more frightening the danger, the harder she would laugh. And quite often when I would come over to her house, because she was mentoring me on the writing of my first book, I would hear all this laughter coming from her living room. And she would always left the door unlocked for me so I could just come in, and I would walk in, and there she'd be, Ariel, sitting in her overstuffed blue rocking chair. And she would be laughing her head off at the news. And the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, I don't know about her mental state. I mean, this just doesn't seem normal. And then I asked her, I said, do you always laugh at the news like this? And she says, oh, yes. She said, oh, yes. She says, terrible things always happen. But if you laugh at them, you're laughing away those things that could hold you prisoner. You're laughing away what she would call the bogeyman. And at first I was like, well, what's a bogeyman? And she said, well, dear, in Britain, we call it a bogeyman. And here in the United States, you call it the boogeyman. So I'm chasing away the boogeyman with my laughter. And I suddenly realized no matter how dire a situation is, when you repeat it to yourself or you tell it to somebody else, if you're able to insert some laughter about it when you're telling it, suddenly it doesn't, at first it's shocking, but then laughter is contagious and you find that you're laughing with them. No matter how horrible it is, you can't keep a straight face when they're laughing about it. So my dear friend Petronelle was actually having trouble with her eyesight. And one day when I came in, and I said, so how did your eye exam go? She started laughing and slapping her knee. And she said, well, the doctor told me I'm going blind. And she laughed and laughed. And I said, what? She said, yes. She says, the doctor told me I will be going blind in a very short period of time. She said, but I still have my fingers. And she kind of waved them in the air. And she said, so I'm learning Braille. And I thought, how can somebody laugh at that? Because she was an author. Also, Ariel, she had written 25 books. She was published by a conventional publishing company. She wrote murder mysteries. And so by losing her eyesight, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you're going to lose your ability to write. And she's thinking, oh, well, I'll just have to shift and learn Braille. Not at any time was she ever going to let anything hold her down. And she continued to laugh. And long story short, Ariel, she did die. But she wasn't blind when she died. She died of old age, and she still had her eyesight. And so it kind of begs the question, did she laugh the blindness away? Or was she vibrating at such a high frequency because she embraced laughter all the time that the blindness was so slow in coming that she actually outlived it?
It's just such a beautiful, not only story, but it is just such a beautiful way to approach life. And I think that sometimes people, they're not told that or given permission to do that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if they laugh about something, they're told this is serious, you're not taking it serious enough, or like they're put down, or they're, in a way that they don't feel comfortable to maybe approach things in their lives with a different way, a different thought process or a different perspective. And so when we can share stories about the wisdom of how your friend Petronelle showed up in her life and the kind of life that she lived, regardless of, you refer to it as the blindness boogeyman in the story, and it helped you deal with your cancer boogeyman. You guys were both dealing with both of those to begin with, but your choice of being able to bring laughter and joy still in your life, I think is an inspiration and an example that others can go, wow, I didn't even think I could do that. You know what I mean? I didn't think that was appropriate. I didn't think that was, but we're saying it is. It
mm-hmm.
is.
It is. And for those people who wonder, is it appropriate? Should I laugh? I mean, you might want to kind of read the vibes in the room before you laugh at someone when they share some dire information with you. But here's the upside to that. I mean, laughter actually creates scientifically measured physical and positive change. I mean, we had that in the book, Crappy to Happy. It creates anti-inflammatory in the body, and it releases these wonderful little endorphins. They are feel-good chemicals. They're kind of like our homegrown happy pill. So, when you think that you're just ready to throw your coffee cup up against the wall because you're feeling so angry, if you can just stop and laugh about what you're feeling, imagine, the coffee cup on the wall and the mess and all that stuff, and just laugh at it. Suddenly you're creating a shift. You're creating a change, and you're bringing that vibration in your body back up to a higher level, bringing down your blood pressure. That's another thing laughter does. It brings down your blood pressure, and it gets you breathing. You can't laugh, Ariel, and not breathe. It's physically impossible. You have to take a deep breath to laugh, and it starts to heal your mind, body, and spirit immediately.
It really is true. There really is a physical response in the body. I remember I learned years ago that if we put a smile on our face and we can hold that smile there for 2 minutes, whether we're happy or not, that our body believes we're happy, and it releases the endorphins, and we start feeling happier simply because we have a smile on our face. So the act of laughing, and you can do it alone, you might not do it in a room of people. I mean, it can be a personal way of dealing with things as well. It will really create a big shift physically, emotionally, mentally, absolutely. And I think in that shift, when we can kind of come above the pain or the process to a degree, I think we can think clearer, right? Mm-hmm. We can think clearer, we can plan, we can figure out our next moves because we're not overwhelmed by the event or the process we're involved in.
Right. That's absolutely right. And I remember there's another story in the book that I wrote in health and wellness, which was the second section, and it's called Breathe. Just Breathe. That's the title of the story. And I talk in there again about how I had just received news from the doctor that I had recurrence, and it was big and it was really mean. And I was having trouble breathing because my body was shutting down. I was so frightened. And then I remembered Petronelle, and I remembered how important it was to laugh. And I remember calling into my husband. He was sitting in the TV room, and I said, Peter, because I was getting dizzy, Ariel. I was getting dizzy because I wasn't breathing. I couldn't take a deep breath. I was like frozen with fear. And I called into Peter and I said, Peter, tell me a joke. I remember he turned around in his chair and he said, what? I said, tell me a joke. I'm having trouble breathing. And so he shared these jokes with me that just got me laughing. At first, all I could do was kind of snort. But by the end of the third joke, when he wanted to do a knock-knock joke, I couldn't laugh anymore. I was laughing so hard. And I remember it was the big first step getting me over that really high hurdle of accepting where I was and breathing through my crises. And I came out the other end, and I survived it. And I remember one of the funniest jokes he said was, well, where do sick boats go? And I said, what? He said, well, where do sick boats go? And I said, I don't know. He said, to the dock. And I thought, this is so funny. Yeah. And it got me laughing.
It is a ridiculously silly joke, but it does. It gets you laughing. And you know what? And so when you're in a state of not being able to breathe, overwhelmed, frightened, body shutting down, you are not helping yourself in any way as well. So even if someone says, I'm gonna just start laughing, I'm gonna force myself to laugh, simply just to help me again get to a place where I can have a little clarity of thought. I can bring the overwhelm down. I think if nothing else, it brings the overwhelm down, and then we can move through. Then we can at least figure it out at that point, and have a more joyful experience doing so. So I love that. I love that those stories are in Crappy to Happy. I love that Petronelle's wisdom is infused throughout the book. And one of the other things I want to mention that I think really sets our book series apart, Chaos to Clarity and now Crappy to Happy, is that we also, in addition to having these unbelievably incredible stories, honest, raw, powerful, impactful stories that people share. I'm an ordained interfaith minister, and I write on the spirituality of joy. And so I bring, a kind of some of the spiritual wisdom of what joy is and what it means from a spiritual perspective. And your background is in psychology, and you're a psychology professor and experienced working with children, and you bring the perspective of the psychology of joy, like you were just talking about. Some of what you were speaking of is in the book, and you bring the psychological perspective. So we really approach all of it, I think, from a very holistic and very grounded view as well.
That's absolutely right. So you bring in the spirituality aspects of it, and I focus more on the psychological and the scientific research behind it. So I have to do the research on, what's the difference between joy and happiness. And there is a difference between joy and happiness, which is you have your joy within you. You build your own joy. It's what you choose to do, whereas happiness is the result of something that made you happy. And so you're very, very happy about something from one time to another. But joy, Ariel, joy is something we can carry around with us all the time, even in our darkest moments, and it helps us get out of those dark moments. And sometimes we have to rely on laughter while we try to hang on to our joy to really get us out of that dark spot.
It's just such a joy, to talk with you, Kat, and to share the new series, to share the new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. And the book is available through Amazon, booksellers worldwide, or direct through Sacred Stories Publishing. And so is Chaos to Clarity, the first book in the series, is available worldwide as well. And so, Kat, last thoughts, messages for our audience?
The last thought is, no matter how dark your moment may feel, no storm lasts forever. And you can start blowing away those dark clouds with laughter. Just laugh. Just fake it till you make it. Just do it.
Yeah, and know that you're not alone. And look for our book, Crap It Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy, and you can recognize it because it is a beautiful red umbrella that is held up against the storm on the cover of our book. And so it's just makes me smile thinking of it. So Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, would you like to share your website as well? You have so much going on and greater work in addition to being the co-author of this incredible series.
Sure. You can go to Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, which is KATHLEENOKEEFEKANA, V as in Victor, OS as in Sam, or you can go right into your Google search bar and type in The Queen of Dreams, and I'll come right up, and you can get to my website that way too. And you can always see me on my video podcast, Dreaming Healing. Just Google that. It'll take you right to my shows.
So much to do. Listeners, thank you so much for being with us. But the first thing we'd like you to do is to please pick up your copy of Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. You will be happy that you did. And so thank you for listening. I'm your host, Rev Ariel Patricia. And until next time, I encourage you, as always, to write your sacred story well.